Hey guys, it's Drew here, quick video blog. I wanted to talk today about the things that are going on in our country, and I wanted to talk about them because I believe that in the media, as usual, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation being passed around. There's a lot of things going around that are just not necessarily true. And I try to always um, inject a little bit of rationality and sensibility into these things because I think that's needed. Okay. So let me just say this. I mean, besides the fact that I wouldn't say I'm a Donald Trump fan, but I am a supporter of his. I did vote for him in the 2016 elections, but I think it's also should be noted that I voted for Obama in 2008. I voted for Mitt Romney in 2012. Then I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Okay, so I'm trying to illustrate the fact that my political leanings have been left, my political leanings have been right, and then more recently again right, and it's probably going to stay here until the Democratic Party, shows that they can present a better format, which I really don't. I honestly don't think that they can because they've just moved so far left that I don't see them moving back. Center again. I don't see them being sensible again. I don't see the JFK liberals or Democrats returning again. I just don't see it happening. Okay, so let's get to the basic gist of this whole thing. Let's talk about these mass shootings that happened. All right. So you had a Dayton, Ohio shooter, you had an El Paso shooter, but for some reason, well, we know the reason. The media only wants to focus on the the El Paso shooter because the narrative really helps them. The narrative allows them or gives them the space to attack Trump. When all these mass shootings happened under Obama, nobody blamed him. People called it a tragedy, and people even blamed Republicans, but nobody wanted to place blame at Obama's feet. Now, at the end of the day, the way I look at it, I think that people who commit heinous crimes are themselves responsible. You cannot hold society responsible for the criminal. You know, you can't. It takes the responsibility off the human being and it places it on public figures like the politicians, or it places it on inanimate objects like the gun. These are all scapegoats, and it's just nonsense. At the end of the day, individuals make decisions, they choose to do things. Now, don't get me wrong. If that individual was funded, supplied by, drugged, or threatened or coerced to do those actions, then it's a different story. But if that individual was not, then and it was just this was just a random shooting of their choice, that individual is at fault and is responsible. I mean, this is just common sense. This is just logic. This is wisdom, I think. Yeah, at the end of the day, and it's sad that in 2019, we have to, repeat these things and say these things because there's some people who, in their heart of hearts, really believe the NRA is to blame. Really believe Donald Trump is to blame. They really believe that it's white supremacy. Okay, and I'll get into that as well. By the way, now if you listen to the mainstream media and you let them tell it, if you let the mainstream media build your worldview, I really believe that you'll be a miserable person. Okay, for many reasons. Because in the real world, it's not going to take mainstream media logic to succeed in it. But anyway, if you let the mainstream media build your worldview, you'll be thinking that, white supremacy is a huge issue, and you'll be thinking that blacks are oppressed no matter what. If you have black skin, you're oppressed. You're oppressed and you're held down by people. If you let mainstream media tell it, Joseph Kony in 2012 was, the biggest threat whatsoever. What happened to that? What about, the Ebola scare? They made it seem like everybody was going to catch Ebola. We're at a point in our country where the media and media outlets, even on social media, do everything possible to gain attention. Because when they gain attention, they can get clicks, and when they get clicks, they can drive conversions, they can sell things. As long as there's attention and there's engagement, they can sell things. Okay, that's how the internet really works now. Because instead of people, telling the truth, sometimes the truth is not popular. Sometimes the truth is not going to generate clicks. Sometimes the truth is not going to generate attention or engagement. because it's harsh. A lot of people don't even want to hear it. Many people want to hear reassuring lies. So as a result, if your goal is to get clicks and engagement and attention, you might not you might forego telling the truth, and you might convince yourself that publishing these radicalized, biased stories is better than pushing truth and expressing truth, or trying to get down to raw data and raw information, which, I think for a long time, a lot of news outlets have foregone trying to push this and trying to do this. But it's important that we as individuals don't allow the media to determine what our perception of reality is, because we know at this point that they've lied to us. We know at this point that they're not telling us the truth. So why go with it? Okay? Now, there's many ways to look at these mass shootings. Okay, I think a very important voice, you can say whatever you want about him, Alex Jones, and all these other like independent agencies that look into the actual events and find out that a lot of these shooters are drugged up. A lot of these shooters, drugged up, meaning that they have drugs in their system when they're doing these shootings. Finding out that some of the victims, quote unquote, not all, but some of the victims appear at one shooting, appear at another shooting. Find out that some of the names are changed. Just a lot of strange things that surround these events. Okay, now, because I don't have any full-fledged knowledge to conclude that these are like, rogue government. I'm not talking about Trump administration. I'm not talking about liberals or Democrats. I'm talking about like black ops, basically. I'm talking about black hat, black ops, you know, dirty underbelly of government that people don't that either that politicians may be cognizant of, but turn a blind eye to it. I'm talking about, CIA, FBI, covert black ops operations for political agendas funded by billionaires, funded by very powerful people in this country. I'm talking about that. That's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel like to me that these are random people that are going out and just shooting. Because if you notice, they happen at certain times. They happen in succession. They're not just random. For us to accept the narrative that they're just random, this is ridiculous. Especially when we see the shootings happen, and instead of people focusing on the victims and the healing of the victims, people start talking about what law can we pass immediately. What law can we pass? Immediately, it jumps from focusing on the victims and their healing to what political agenda can we enact. Do you see how that works? So it's not, and then plus, my opinion on that whole thing, we are human beings. We don't have the memories of goldfish, right? So what that means, how goldfish have very short memories. You know, they'll even, there's this thing that basically states that if you feed a goldfish, 3 minutes apart, they won't even remember that they ate. That's how forgetful goldfish are. Their memories are not they're not built to remember things, right? Okay, so they're forgetful. So we don't have the memory of goldfish as human beings. When I say that, I mean that, when it comes to mass shootings and when it comes to gun control and gun bans, instead of us just looking at nations right now that have gun control, instead of us just looking at nations right now that have gun control and gun bans and experience zero mass shootings, we need to also consider the entirety of human history. We can't just look at right now. We can't just look at last week. We can't just look at the last decade. We need to consider the entirety of human history. And the reason why is because human nature is still human nature. So if in the past, in Joseph Stalin's government, in Hitler's reign, Lenin, all these people who murdered millions of people, right? If the pretext to them controlling, enslaving, murdering millions of people was disarming those people, how can you conclude that a truly kind and benevolent leader who wants the best for their people would advocate disarming their own people? It doesn't make any sense. It's because we are exhibiting the memory of a goldfish. Instead of us exhibiting true human history and putting our due diligence in and truly working to find out the details, instead of us realizing that even with all the mass shootings combined, don't match the death toll committed by governments that have been oppressive, that disarm their own people. I mean, if the goal is to save lives empirically, you have to look at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers and you have to say how many people died as a result of being disarmed and, they had an oppressive government, a tyrannical government, then take advantage of their defenselessness. It's in the millions. I mean, one person, Hitler, was able to cause millions of deaths because the people that he was enslaving and killing were not armed. Same thing with Joseph Stalin. Same thing with Mao in China. We've seen this throughout history. So why is it that some of us only use today's news and the last week's news as a pretext for thinking about policy? I mean, I know why the politicians do it. I know why the politicians do it. I know why the people in power do it. I mean, that's obvious to me. I mean, that they want to control people. That's obvious to me. I don't know why citizens do it, though. What benefit is it to you as a citizen to disarm yourself? I mean, think about it. Like, why are people so mindlessly self destructive? Self preservation is like the number one thing that human beings are commanded by nature to do, to preserve themselves. But now you have a whole group of people who believe that preserving themselves means giving up their means to defend themselves. They view the government as their daddy. They view the government as their protector. The government has a military. The government has safety nets. The government is supposed to regulate things and supposed to, you know, direct things. Okay? But the government is not supposed to take away your ability to feed yourself. The government is not supposed to take away your ability to defend yourself. The government is not supposed to be able to take away, your ability to assembly and all these other wonderful rights that we have. The government is not supposed to do that. One of the ways that you know that the government is actually stepping over boundaries is when they go for your right to defend yourself. Because they don't necessarily, you know, and people who are short-sighted believe that this is a benevolent government that really wants the best for us. And it's like, come on, we have to be more intelligent than this. We have to be more aware and more willing to dig into details because we know that the media is lying to us. Okay? Now, I personally, I'm not the most spiritual person in the world, but I believe in God. I believe in being spiritually protected. I believe in free will. I believe in all these things, But I also believe that, we as human beings cannot be passive. We have to exercise our wills. Just because I'm a Christian, it doesn't mean that I believe that we're supposed to be passive. We're supposed to exercise our wills. If we know that somebody's coming to get us, we know that somebody's trying to kill us or trying to put us in a position where we're defenseless, we need to resist that. We need to resist that. We need to resist that with all of our fiber. We need to be able to provide ourselves with arms if we need it. We need to be able to hone in on the truth and react and make decisions based on that truth. We can't just take what the media tells us, accept it verbatim, and just go with it, which is what a lot of our society is doing. Their emotions get triggered and they just go with it. They have no self control, they have no self dialogue. They just go with whatever emotions are triggered in the moment. So the media plays them like a fiddle, And it's just, to me, it's very sad. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to inject some kind of perspective into this thing. Leave some comments below, some engagement if you want. If not, all good as well. Have a wonderful day. Peace.